Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Now I'm going to start by, and I probably shouldn't do this, but immediately comparing it to a totally different book. I'm comparing apples and oranges here, but the last book I read was The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. And I'm comparing it to this book, Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, because they're about the same length and they came out just about the same year as well. But they're so different. So Turn of the Screw, if you watched my video on it, I did not like it at all. I found it very difficult to read. The prose was so dense and it was just a struggle. This one, on the other hand, is so readable. Just really sucks you in and paints such a vivid picture. And I'm wondering why that is. And my only explanation is the two different authors. So the one author, Henry James, he's the son of a very wealthy American plutocrat who spent his childhood traveling around Europe and going to various schools and living in sort of upper class society, what we'd call a nepo baby today. And I feel like maybe he's written something else that's really amazing, but from that one novella that I read, it seems to me that because he's in with society, they're like, oh, did you see what James wrote? Oh yes, it was wonderful. Oh, I enjoyed it. And it just sort of became popular because he was this rich, wealthy guy, and he wrote something. So everyone, let's read what Henry James wrote. Whereas this, Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Joseph Conrad's an amazing individual. First of all, he wrote this in English, which is his third language. He was born in the Russian Empire to Polish dissidents who were sent to, not quite Siberia, but basically sent to Siberia and died, and so he was orphaned, and then he sort of was raised in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then got on a ship and went to every single continent on the planet in the 19th century, almost, and did so much. He traveled so many places, and he was like not working class, but he was a person who actually went out and did things. And his writing, like I said, in his third language is just incredible. And like I said, it came out the same year as Turn of the Screw by Henry James. So why are the two so difficult to read? Like, if the point of literature, of writing, is communication, conveying thoughts and ideas from one person's brain through the medium of print and literature into another person's brain. If your writing is very dense and very difficult to understand, then you are failing at that, at an intrinsic level. Whether your literature is great or not, if you can't convey those ideas as well as someone else, then you are not as good of a writer as someone else. So I'm just going to say that objectively, Joseph Conrad is a much better writer than Henry James. And that is my subjective opinion. Anyways, Heart of Darkness. So this follows the story of one man's journey up the Congo River during the time of the sort of Belgian slave state that is the free Congo state. Adam Hochschild wrote a book, King Leopold's Ghost. I read that a few years ago. Very highly recommend it. It's non-fiction. It tells you the history of the Congo during this period. But this is sort of a fictionalized account based on Joseph Conrad, the author's actual real-life travels there. So he actually was a steamboat captain on the Congo River for a few months or a year or so. And that's what the character in his book is doing. So it's such a neat idea. So it starts at the mouth of the Thames, and there's a whole bunch of sailors that are getting ready to head out to sea. They're waiting for the tide or whatever. And one of the sailors there is a guy named Charles Marlowe. And they all sort of know that Charles Marlowe just got back from an adventure, and they all want to hear it, but like no one's saying anything. So then Marlowe, he starts telling his story. So the whole book is Marlowe relating his experiences in the Congo to these other fictional characters on this boat. And that gives the story such an interesting way of writing, because you're reading it. It's almost like an oral story, which is how humans sort of evolved to share and hear stories. So just hearing it in this oral format is amazing, which, I mean, a lot of stories do that in sort of the first person past tense narrative, but the way that the entire book basically is in quotations. Every paragraph, everything is what this guy Marlowe is saying to his audience of fellow sailors. And just the language, the sort of expressions, the way he justifies himself and explains things, and but it's also very at times poetic, and the metaphors and the imagery and the descriptions that this guy Marlowe is explaining to people is incredible. It's such a good book to like. I'm at a loss for words. Anyway, so the plot follows this guy Marlowe who he needed a job, and he said when he was a child he always loved looking at the blank spots on the map, which is kind of cool. Like, you think in the 19th century there were still some blank spots on the map, and he points out the Congo River in Africa that was sort of blank spot, and so he needs work. He's done lots of sailoring here, there, and everywhere, and he eventually contacts some people, and they get him a job working for this company in Belgium, going to the Congo. And the whole time he's describing the way he describes Brussels. He doesn't say Brussels. He says the sort of the sepulchre city. I don't think I've ever said that word aloud. Like describes as the white sepulchre, which is like a biblical reference to things that look good on the outside, but on the inside are full of death. So right from the outset, he's aware of the atrocities going on in the Congo, or maybe not from the outset, but in telling the story, he's setting it up that there are horrible things going on in this very heart of darkness, the Congo. And so he describes his journey. He gets there, the heat and the disease and the bugs and the everything you'd expect from a jungle adventure. He makes his way overland to the place where his ship's supposed to be, because he's going to be this new steamship captain, because the last one died. It turns out his steamship has been wrecked. Someone tried to take it for a ride because they needed it, and it struck rocks and sunk. So he spends the next few months trying to fix it, pull it out of the water, repair it, get it seaworthy. And he meets with the manager there, who he doesn't really quite get along with, who starts hearing rumors of this guy Kurtz. There's this guy Kurtz who's far upriver, at the first station way upriver, and this Kurtz guy is the guy who's sending back so much ivory. So in this book, the Congo is all about ivory. They're looting it for its wealth in ivory, which in reality ivory was sort of the impetus for going there, but it ended up being rubber. But in this book, it's all ivory. So he's hearing about this Kurtz guy, and the manager doesn't really like Kurtz, because everyone sort of knows like Kurtz is doing so well and producing so much ivory that he's going to move up the ranks, and he's sort of going to knock out the manager, and take the manager's job, sort of thing. So he doesn't really like him, but they all sort of admire Kurtz. And yeah, so he's trying to repair his boat, and he says like all he needs is rivets. He describes it, it's funny the way the sort of dry humor that you can imagine, this sort of grizzled, not quite old, but middle-aged sailor guy. Like he talks about how back on the coast there's rivets everywhere. You can't walk for rivets. You bend over and you just reach down your hand and you pull up fistfuls of rivets. There's rivets all over the place, but at this sort of middle part way up the river where he needs the rivets, you can't get rivets. And he's like, if we just had rivets, the boat would be fixed and we'd be fine. But he has to wait months for them to ship up enough rivets for him to fix the boat. Stuff like that. So eventually the boat gets, I keep saying boat, the steamship gets going, and it's like not state of the art. It's leaky and breaks down a couple times, but they managed to get all the way upriver. And at one point there's an attack. The natives attack the steamship. One guy dies. Kurtz just sort of throws him overboard because there's other natives on board. I forget if he refers to them as carriers or helpers or whatever, but they are cannibals, according to Marlowe, and so he just wants to get rid of the body. Eventually, they make it up to the heart of darkness, as it were, where Kurtz is stationed. And there's been rumors that Kurtz is sick and he's dying, or he has died. But when they finally get up there, they find out that he is dying. He's in a rough shape, but he has kind of this whole sort of tribe that worships him. They're like carrying him out on a stretcher, and he's like skin and bones, dying. But for whatever reason, he's like turned a whole bunch of people to his side and sort of uses them as his personal army to go out and kill and murder and maim whoever and whatever has ivory, and that's how he gets all his ivory. It's described that his camp has a whole bunch of stakes all around it with human heads implanted on it. So Kurtz is sort of the embodiment of this driving evil that is just ravishing the Congo for all it's worth. But interestingly, Marlowe, our narrator, kind of not it's hard to describe. He doesn't appreciate him. He doesn't look up to him. He doesn't worship him. But there's something about the fact that everyone in the Congo is doing what Kurtz is doing. They're all maiming, torturing, murdering, doing everything they can to get this wealth, but everyone else is doing it under the guise of humanitarian aid or civilization or Christianization, so educating the savages. So they're all saying that they're doing it for good reasons when really they're just doing it for the money. Whereas Kurtz is honest about it. He's brutal, he's savage, he's honest about it. I'm killing all these people and doing whatever I can, but I'm getting the most ivory, and that's what we're here for. Everyone else seems to think that, oh no, we shouldn't be doing this. We need to be. No, they're all sort of false and hypocrites. And Marlowe says earlier that he never lies, and he hates lying. So he sort of sees in Kurtz sort of the embodiment, the sort of true face of European colonialism in the Congo. But the manager and all the other, he calls them pioneers, I think he calls them, the other white people, they all really look down on Kurtz and are like, oh, his methods are barbaric, this is horrible, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of shun Marlowe for taking a shine to Kurtz, I guess you could say. But anyways, they take Kurtz on the boat and head back downriver, but Kurtz dies before they get there. When he says the famous lines, his final words, he just whispers, the horror, because he sort of recognizes how horrible what he's done and what everyone's doing, and just everything in this heart of darkness, this landscape that's so cut off from sort of the laws and norms of Europe. Not to say that it is a sort of barbaric, savage land. It is because of the Europeans bringing that savagery to this land. But I think different characters say that you can sort of get away with anything. Who's going to stop you? You can do whatever you want there. Yeah, and it ends with, there was sort of a package of documents and letters that Kurtz gave to Marlowe because he sort of trusted him for whatever reason. And once he gets back to Europe, all the company bigwigs, they all, you need to give us these documents. Like, they are property of the company. They think they contain sort of intel and information about the Congo that will help them exploit it more. He ends up giving it to a journalist to sort of report on what's actually going on in the Congo. And then there's a stack of letters for Kurtz's wife, lover, whatever. And the final scene is Marlowe delivering those to this woman this is a year after his death, and she's still in mourning, is still distraught, and goes on and on about how great Kurtz is. And asks what were his final words, and Marlowe lies to her and says, oh, his final words were your name. And she's like, oh, I knew it, he's so in love with me, whatever. And that's how it ends. There was a part at the start where Marlowe points up the Thames and refers to London and England and Britain as that had once also been a heart of darkness, a heart of a place where that wasn't civilized and was sort of considered barbaric by the Romans who went there to try and civilize it. And I'm not sure if he's literally just making a historical reference, saying that the Congo and England are kind of the same, just different through time, or if he's referring to England at the present time, sort of the 19th century, the end of the 19th century, as still being just as barbaric and savage because of what they're doing in their colonies. I have heard that that's a take on it, but I don't think he's criticizing the British. I think he's criticizing the Belgians and what they're doing in the Congo, but not the British. For example, he sees a map with different colors all over this world map, with different colors representing the different sort of colonial empires. So blue for the French, I think purple for the Germans, and then yellow for the Belgians. But he also describes lots of red, which is the British. And he says something like, it felt good to see that much bread because you knew that good work was going on there. So I don't think he's criticizing the British. Yeah, what an amazing book. I mean, like I said, just the voice of it, from this sort of this sea captain recounting this tale to the fellow sailors on the boat, and because it is sort of Conrad himself telling a story of his own experience, because he actually went there in the 1890s. Yeah, just a fantastic book. Highly recommend it. It's one that I think I could read multiple times and still enjoy so much of it. It's super short too, only 100 pages. This edition also had the Conrad's actual diary, so the nonfiction diary that he wrote in the Congo. It's only like 10 pages, very, very sparse, but it gives you a sort of a taste of what he experienced there for real. Yeah, just incredible. Also, yeah, again, recommend King Leopold's Ghost by Hochschild if you want sort of the true account of what happened in the Congo. Crazy, crazy stuff. Yeah, so that was Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad.